Hello everyone, welcome on in. It is a busy week here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, number one tennis betting podcast and YouTube show. After the 1000 event in Miami, we are down to earth with 3 250s this week across the world. And I'm delighted to say, breaking them down, giving us the best bets, looking at the bracket, looking at the top bets to win the tournament and the first round matches is our senior ATP Tour handicapper. It is Sean Calvert. Good afternoon, Sean.
Good afternoon. You all right?
Enjoy the sunshine?
I wasn't this morning at about 9 o'clock when I was in the middle of a field somewhere on the outskirts of Bellucci watching Lagan's football team get a sound beating in some incredibly exposed part of Essex where the wind was just blowing about 30 mile an hour. Apart from that, I'm all right, yeah. And now that I've got back to the sort of calmer area of Leigh-on-Sea, it's a beautiful day, isn't it?
It's a lovely day. It's going to be lovely for the next couple of weeks as well. The weather forecast
of course, because I'm going away.
You're going away, and we'll kind of come on to the tournament straight away where you're going. You're heading to Marrakesh. You followed Sean in Marrakesh at Because We Win last year. It was all things going on. He was, you had tarantulas, was it? The scorpions. You had people burning fire to courts. It was all happening.
It was the year before, but yeah.
Yeah,
I don't remember any tarantulas or scorpions.
You had a picture. There was a picture of you in some marketplace, and there was like a scorpion. I'm sure it was.
That might have been Jamar El-Fanar. I don't think that was me. Was it? It might have been one of the guys that I was with.
It looked like something from an Indiana Jones movie. That's what it looked like.
I think one of the guys that I was with had the snake charmer guy. I think it might have been that. Yeah, there's all sorts goes on in that square.
I ate all that stuff.
Oh, I'll be back there on Tuesday. It's best ATP 250 of the year, this, without a shadow of a doubt. It's
And
brilliant.
What's the weather going to be like for you?
All right, actually. At the minute, it's really hot in Marrakesh. It's about 30, 31, 32, that sort of temperature.
Right.
But when I go, it drops down to about sort of 25, 26, which is fine. You don't really want it to be too hot. I mean, 26 is 25. That's fine. That's no problem.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. So good conditions for the weather forecast over in Marrakesh. And what are the trends like in this tournament here?
I'll tell you when I've opened the right document.
Okay.
Just bear with me a second. It's a 3-tournament week, this. I've got quite a lot of stuff on my desktop. But anyway, conditions as far as Marrakesh are concerned, it's played at slight altitude, 460 metres. So it's a little bit quicker than your normal sea-level clay event, but not massively so. Holds and first serve points won, 75.4% holds and 68.9% first serve points won in the 3 editions since COVID. I tend to do it in the last sort of 3, 4, 5 editions. Going back further is, it's not that helpful sometimes, but that would suggest that it's kind of a sort of medium-paced-ish clay event, maybe a little bit quicker because of the altitude, but, it's not a huge amount, 460 metres. Tie-break matches, again, just 34% of the matches have featured a tie-break since COVID. Set one overs, again, it's somewhere where I probably wouldn't be doing too many set one over because it averages just 25%. Set one over 10.5. Again, in the last 3 editions, which would equate to odds of around about 3-1. Well, exactly 3-1. If you wanted to bet set one over 10.5, which is something I wouldn't do here. The underdog is interesting here. This is generally the first clay event of the year, so you do get quite a few upsets, peculiar results. It averages 38% underdog winners over I think it's the last 7 editions. And if you'd actually just blindly backed every underdog in those last 7 editions for just $10, you'd be up by $331.58. So it's been a good tournament for underdog backers. The weather we've covered. Do you want me to do the trends?
Yes, please.
Okay, so no number 1 seed has made the final in Morocco since 2010. This tournament used to be held at Casablanca and then they moved it. No number 1 seed has even made the semi-finals since it moved to Marrakesh from Casablanca in 2016. No qualifier has made the semi-final since it moved to Marrakesh. And interestingly, 13 of the 14 finalists here and all of the last 12 in Marrakesh have been European. So it's not generally a tournament where your South American players have done particularly well, probably because they're a little bit fatigued after their own golden swing.
Let's have a look at some of the previous winners. 2024, Matteo Berrettini won it. 2023, Cabash Bainer, I'm trying to read what I'm writing.
Yep.
2021, Goffin, Benoit Paire, and Dujar won it as well. So Berrettini won it last year, which you wouldn't expect for him to win on a clay court event, Matteo Berrettini. So it shows
It's
he is a
quickish,
little bit
isn't
quick.
it?
Yeah.
Altitude.
Obviously, this is the first clay week of the season. The clay season is here now. There's 3 tournaments. We're going to preview this tournament. And if you are liking the content, please hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Put a like in as well. Leave us your comments. Here is the draw. The draw is a 32. Well, it's not a 32 player. It's a 28 player tournament. But the 4 seeds have got through to the top 4 seeds. Have got to buy through to the last 16. Number 1 seed is Griekspoor. He'll play Bellucci. Number 3 seed is Muller. He'll play João Munar. That is the top half. Calvert is the number 5 seed. And Borges, the Portuguese player, is the 4 seed. Darderi is 7. And Sonego is number 2. And that means Griekspoor, Muller, Borges, and Sonego are all got buys into the last 16, and no surprise they're at the top of the betting with Bet Rivers to win the tournament. Borges is a joint favourite with the number 1 seed Talon Griekspoor at 550, Aleksandar Muller plus 650, Lorenzo Sonego 650, João Munar 10, Darderi 10, Karina Buster 11, Jong 14, Kabash Bainer 14, Altmaier 16, Kotov 16, Delien 18, and Bellucci 18, 22 to 1 bar those players. Looking at the draw, it's such a small draw. I don't think there's really much of a bias in the top or the bottom. Griekspoor, obviously not a player that you would suggest is a out-and-out clay quarter, but it is quick conditions. I suppose the more natural clay quarters and the seeds are in the bottom half of the draw with Borges and Sonego can play a little bit on clay as well. So it's a difficult one to find the area of the draw we want to attack. Where have you sort of gone through and found out the value here for us?
Well, I've got one in the top half, and one which is a more speculative pick, which I think offers very good value, potentially, in the bottom half. So the top half for me, I'm going to take João Munar here, 10 to 1.
Yeah, I thought you were going to take João Munar.
This is a form pick, really. I mean, he's been playing so well lately on hard courts, and that suggests that he's very much more than capable of winning a title of this level of 250 back on the clay with a bit of altitude. You know, he's enjoyed great success this year, Munar, with a more attacking style. He's obviously more confident now. My only slight worry about him is that he does lose some tight matches, some matches that he should win, like 7-6 in the third. He's lost numerous times. If he could get over that, just get a little bit more steel at the right times, then you know he's a player on the upgrade at the minute. Just because he's changed the style of play. Before he was just an out-and-out grinder. You know, he'd win his matches just by waiting for the other guy to miss ultimately, and it got him so far in the game. But you know, I always like it when players do make changes to the game just to try and kick on that next level. That's what he's done. You know, the results have been great. He's beaten Medvedev, Shelton, Musetti, Borges, Davidovich Fokina, Arnaldi. All of those he's beaten on hard courts in 2025. Should have beaten Aleksandar Muller in Hong Kong as well in the semi-final there. He will play Muller, or at least I hope he plays Muller, in the quarterfinals here. He's got a qualifier in the first round, Munar. Then he'll have the winner of Benchetrit against De Jong. And then he'll play Muller, who, as I say, he should have beaten him in Hong Kong. So it's not a particularly worrying draw. Griekspoor, I'm not convinced about. I think I backed him here in 2023 when I went there, Griekspoor. He had a painful win in the first round, which I think was against Elias Ymer. Just about got the win in the first round, then got beat by Kabash Baena in his next match, which I think was the quarterfinals. Not convinced by him on clay generally. I don't think he's up for these smaller tournaments, to be perfectly honest. I think he's very much a big match player these days, Griekspoor. As I've said about his statistics on hard, he doesn't return well enough. He's someone that I wouldn't be that worried about. So for me, Munar in the top half. And I've got one in the bottom half that isn't even on that graphic there.
Okay, go on, fire away.
Which is a good friend of yours and mine, Mr. Hugo Gaston, 40 to 1, which I thought was very big, really. I found that very strange that he's that big. Plays a qualifier first up, Gaston. Hopefully that'll be a good one. And then he would potentially meet Darderi, Luciano Darderi, who he beat in straight sets at Indian Wells in clay-like conditions, beat him pretty comfortably as well, to be fair. The other thing that isn't a positive for Darderi is that he's still playing. At the time we're talking now, he's still got the Naples Challenger final to play today. He's had to play 2 matches in one day because of the weather conditions there. He's played the semi-final this morning Now he's got to play the final this afternoon, Darderi. Then he's got to come to Marrakesh, get used to conditions with the altitude. They're probably different balls, all the rest of it.
And he played in Miami.
Darderi?
Yeah.
He's played quite a lot of tennis. So, and this is going to be a very short turnaround. I presume he'll leave Naples later on today, or potentially tomorrow morning, and he's not going to have a great deal of time to turn around. And as I said, anyway, even forgetting about that, Gaston beat him very comfortably in Indian Wells. The other thing that interests me about Gaston, there's several things actually. He's got a very good record against Cabarrus Baena. Now, Cabarrus Baena's got a superb record at this tournament, and he would be perhaps an obvious pick for a lot of people because he has got such a fabulous record here. Won it a couple of years ago, finalist last year. But Gaston's got a good record against him. He would potentially meet him in the semi-finals. Cabarrus Baena is, 14-1? I wouldn't put anybody off that. That's a perfectly solid play because he's been, as I say, he's got an excellent record here. He's also coached by a Moroccan, Younes El Anaoui, who I tend to see pretty much every tournament I go to. I'm sure I'll see him again in a couple of days. Younes El Anaoui, former champion here many, many years ago, legend of Moroccan tennis. So he's got the best guy in his corner. He's also got a good record on altitude, has Gaston. Beat Cabarrus Baena in Kitzbühel, which is an altitude tournament, on the way to that particular final last summer. Lost to Berrettini in the final there. He's also a finalist in Gstaad on the clay at altitude. So there's a lot to like about him at a big price. He's very risky. He's very moody. We know that. He could throw in the towel at any point. That's probably why he's 40-1. The only player that would concern me with regards to him would be Sonego. He's lost 3 times against Sonego, but I don't think they've ever played. In fact, I'm sure they've never played on clay. Sonego has actually never made a clay final at Challenger or main level outside of Italy. So I wouldn't be. He's not a player that you would rely on to get to finals consistently, Sonego, by any means. So 40-1 each way, Gaston. 10-1 each way, João Munar.
Yeah, João Munar, 10-1. Like that pick in the top half of the draw. Hugo Gaston, a player that I've lost a lot of hard-earned money over the years.
I think most people have, yeah.
He's a 40-1 shot to win the tournament over in Morocco, and Sean will be there. When are you flying out, Sean, tomorrow?
Tuesday. So I think we'll probably do Tuesday's show, and then I've got a sort of afternoon flight, so I'll head straight out there, straight to the airport. It's only down the road, Southend Airport. So
we'll see Sean over there on the Instagram account at Because We Win, and we'll see us again on Tuesday, giving you the best bets for the tournaments over in the 3 tournaments this week. Let's have a look at 2 matches that have caught your attention. We've got 2 matches, not the greatest of matches, but they're quite interesting from a betting heat. Pavel Kotov up against Matteo Bellucci. And it's virtually a pick and match with Bet Rivers. It's -115, Kotov, -108 for Bellucci. They've met once before in the Phoenix Challenger in 2023. Kotov won 6-4, 6-3. The early money has come for Kotov. He has been bet pretty heavily, actually, because Bellucci's on a terrible run. He hasn't won in the last 5 matches. I'm going to cough. Apologies. So early money for Kotov. You can take it away while I put myself on mute because I'm going to have a coughing attack.
You all right? Okay, I'll carry on. So Kotov against Bellucci. I liked this a lot when it was the prices that it was earlier. I still like it, actually. In decimal, Kotov was 1.9 something earlier on when I looked and when I wrote this initially. In the last sort of hour or so, which often happens when we do this show, he's been bet pretty heavily. This is about Kotov having a great record at this tournament. Not only that, but a great record on clay as well, or a very good record on clay as well. Certainly compared to Bellucci, whose record on clay is poor, really poor. If you look at what Kotov's done in Marrakesh, got a 70% win rate here, won 7 of his 10 matches. He's compiled a service points won and return points won total of 103, and a service hold and break total of 108. So it's a tournament that he's gone really well at before. If we look at the last 12 months on clay at main level, still a good record, Kotov. 55% win rate, service points won and return points won total of 100, hold and break total of 102. So really solid numbers on clay, not just at this tournament, but everything at main level. Now we look at Bellucci. He's never played Marrakesh, so it'll be new conditions for him. As I said, bit of altitude there. His all-time record on clay at main level is non-existent. He's only played 1 match, which was, I think it was a 5-set loss to Francis Tiafoe at the French Open last year. His all-time record on clay at challenger level is poor. He's only won 32% of his matches. He's won 7 of his 22 clay court matches at challenger level, which is not very encouraging for stepping up to main level to play on clay. Both of these guys have been in pretty poor form. Bellucci, having made a bit of a breakthrough in Rotterdam as a qualifier, getting to the semis, done nothing since then. Lost pretty much every match, which would be disappointing for him. They've met once before. Kotov was a slightly bigger price, although by the time this match starts, it will probably be almost exactly the same, around about 1.8-ish, and he won that Kotov in straight sets. It was on slow, hard at the Phoenix Challenger, which is kind of similar to Indian Wells in the conditions. He was 190-91 ahead in terms of service points won and return points won totals of that match. So there's a lot to like about a Kotov here in conditions that he obviously enjoys. So he's definitely my bet in this one. Kotov, yeah, minus 115, around about 1.87. If that price still exists by the time this show goes live, then great. But he was bigger, he's a little shorter, but I think it's still value against the guy that can't or hasn't proven himself by any means on clay.
Yeah, money coming for Kotov. Head across to the BetRivers website or download the app to get that bet on. The prices are moving very fast as we record this show. And obviously, if you want to watch the match, you can on the BetRivers app and the website. You can bet live and watch live with BetRivers. Moving on to our final match over in Marrakesh, and it involves a local player, Elliott Benchetrit. Is that how you pronounce it? Benchetrit?
Benchetrit, yeah.
Benchetrit, ranked 606 in the world, up against Jesper de Jong. Jesper de Jong is a heavy favourite here, minus 2,000. The money line for Benchetrit is 950, and the spread is 6.5, with the Moroccan minus 139, a heavy favourite with the 6.5 star. You can move the toggle up and down on the BetRivers website to get a different handicap if you prefer. The total here is 18.5, with over minus 120, under minus 107. Benchetrit has been playing in the Futures events. He's played for Davis Cup for Morocco, but I haven't seen this name at all on the ATP main tour. I don't know if he's played much on the ATP Tour main tour.
Yeah,
I've never seen this name before.
Yeah, it's a curious one, Benchetrit, because a few years ago he was a regular on the sort of Challenger Tour, even at main level a few times. He's French guy. He qualifies. He used to play for France. Qualifies through, I think, his father's heritage to play for Morocco. So he switched allegiances to Morocco a few years ago, but initially someone that was a regular. As I say, he was top 200 at one stage. Benchetrit. He's still only 26. But he feels like he's been around for a very, very long time. I haven't seen much of him lately because he's really struggled. He's down to 603 in the rankings at the minute. As I said, he was former top 200, so the ability is there. He was a good junior as well, so the ability is there. He's just really lost his way in the last few years. What interests me about this is that profit and loss that I mentioned earlier on about this tournament. A lot of that comes from some really, really big price winners. A few sort of local Moroccan players have beaten a kind of demotivated opponent, a very short price demotivated opponent at this tournament over the years. And you are taking a chance on de Jong here at minus $20. I mean, it should be the case that Benchetrit is better prepared for this. Certainly fresher, having not played for over 10 days. De Jong's played an awful lot of tennis. He was at the Girona Challenger until yesterday. Lost to Cilic in the semi-finals. He's played 19 sets in 10 days now, de Jong. Much better recent form by far, which is why the prices are how they are. But a quick turnaround, fatigue, change of conditions to altitude at a tournament he's never played at before, all that would worry me, certainly at that price. Benchetrit hasn't played at a higher level than ITF, apart from here where he gets a wild card, since 2023. But as I say, he's former top 200 and he's only 26. If he's motivated to get his career back on track, which I don't know, I assume he is, but you never know. He's certainly got a chance of covering a very generous spread here. Plus 5.5 games, I think was plus 125 when I looked earlier on. Played pretty well here last year against Kotov, who we just talked about. If he brings his best level against a fatigued sort of opponent, then he could cover the spread. It's just going to be a lean because I haven't seen him play lately, but at his best, or the level that he's shown in the past, he's certainly capable. He's beaten de Jong as well, of course. He beat de Jong in their only career meeting as a 3.3 underdog in the final of a Futures event a couple of years ago. So, yeah, if he's motivated, I think he can at least make it closer than these odds would have you believe.
You would think he'd be motivated in front of his home crowd. And he
would think.
And he did beat de Jong very comfortably, 6-4, 6-1 as well in that match.
Yep.
If you think the 6.5 or the 5.5 is a good bit of value as well, like I say, you can move to toggle with the Bet Rivers website. Also brings in the over games here. 18.5 looks potentially pretty cheap as well. Benchetrit total games as well. All the markets available on the Bet Rivers website. There will be about 40 of them on this match. A huge array of tennis markets you have there. Okay, that is it from Marrakesh. And now we move from Marrakesh to Houston in Texas, where we have the US Men's Clay Court Championships. Now, this Clay Court Championships is one that is usually won by the Americans. 5 of the last 6 editions of this have been won by American players, and it's dominated by the American players again. If you look at the previous winners, Ben Shelton won it, Francis Tiafoe, Riley Opelka in the last 3 years. Now, that doesn't look like a normal roll of honour for clay court tournaments. So I'm suggesting here it's a pretty quick clay court tournament here in Houston.
Yeah, it is. It's played on American red clay, which is different to the European clay courts. It's clay that's laid on top of a hard surface, so it's quicker than your normal European red clay event or your South American red clay event. A few players have said it can be quite slippery, but it's certainly quicker. Michael Moe said last year, this is probably the fastest clay court in the world, which suits me. Made the quarterfinals, I think, here last year, Mo. So it did suit him. So yeah, fastest clay court in the world, according to Michael Moe. Night matches are slower, as you would expect. Weather dependent, as you would also expect. Any clay event is governed by the prevailing conditions. Last year it was hot and quick at this tournament. 2023, you probably remember it was a virtual washout. I remember being in Marrakesh and looking at the matches in Houston, and there weren't any because they were all rained off. Look at the stats though. Last 3 editions since COVID, 82.1% holds of serve and 72.2% first serve points won. You would associate those sort of numbers with a hard court event. Set one over 10.5 games, not massive, but as I say, one year was very, very wet, which kind of dampened that down a bit. 25% in the last 3 editions. Tiebreak matches higher than Marrakesh. 37% of the matches in the last 3 editions have featured a tiebreak. Similar to Marrakesh, a lot of underdog winners, 39% in the last 10 editions. The best round is actually the semi-final. 58% of the underdogs have won in the last 10 editions of the Houston semi-finals. And again, if you backed all the underdogs in the last 8 editions for a nominal $10 each, you'd be slightly down by $56.13, which suggests that there have been a lot of underdog winners, but only marginal underdogs rather than some of the big price ones over in Marrakesh. But the interesting thing about this week for me is that the weather, it's supposed to be pretty hot, 27 to 30 Celsius, pretty much all week up until the final on Sunday when it's supposed to rain. Quite windy as well, but very quick conditions. Do you want me to quickly do the trends?
Well, it's funny that because I've looked at the weather in this tournament as well, and all my weather forecasts is every single day apart from Wednesday and Sunday rain. It's amazing that the weather forecast is like different weather forecasts.
I think this is a thunder showers kind of rain, rather than like solid rain. It certainly didn't say that on mine, but we'll see. Where was I? The trends. Yeah, the number one seed has failed to win this at all, or did fail to win this at all between 2005 and 2023, until Tiafoe and Shelton won it in back-to-back years as top seeds. So it's been a bit of a poor one for number one seeds until recently. There's been an American in the final every year bar one since 2015, as you mentioned, and Americans won the title in 6 of the last 8 years, and the last qualifier to make the final was way back in 2007, which was Zabaleta.
Yep, let's have a look at the outright market. Tommy Paul, the American, is the 3-1 favourite. Francis Tiafoe is 5. Nakashima is 7. Etcheverry 8. Mickelson 10. Tabio 14. Lerner Tien, the young guy coming through the ranks, is 14. Jordan Thompson 16. Kei Nishikori 20. Christian Garin 22. Gallan, watch your Gallans and Garin's 22-1. Mackenzie McDonald 25, Yannick Hanfmann 25 and 28 to 1 bar. Let's have a look at the draw. Lots of American players in it, as you would expect. Lots of American players do well. The number one seed is Tommy Paul. He is in the top half of the draw. He's scheduled to play Tabilo. Again, it's a 28-player tournament with the top 4 seeds all receiving buys. And those players with the buys are Tommy Paul, the number one seed, Tabio, the number 2 seed, and Nakashima and Tiafoe. And if it went to the seedings, Paul would play Thompson, Tabio would play Etcheverry, Nishikori would play Nakashima, and Alex Michelsen would play France's TFO. Looking at that draw, Sean, again, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Really, it's really difficult. A lot of these players have coming from a tough, hardcore campaign, not really playing that great. Come across here, there's no one really bouncing off the page to me as someone or an area of the draw that I quite like the look of. What are your thoughts on this one?
Pretty much the same as yourself, actually.
Uninspiring.
I'm not actually going to have a bet here because I don't think there's any real value. The one I was looking at before the odds came out, obviously I get the draw sheets before I get the odds, was Nakashima. But 7-1, I don't think I can advise him at that price. I mean, I can go through the sort of thought process. He's got a very good draw, Nakashima, in that third quarter. TFO is kind of the obvious choice. He's got a very good record here. Won it a couple of years ago, final, I think, last year as well, off the top of my head. Gets a lot of support here. It's one of the events that he does tend to be up for, but he's looked extremely lackluster again in the last sort of 6 months or so. Since the US Open, again, done nothing really. So you wouldn't want to be backing him at 5-1. Not for me. As I said, Nakashima's got a good draw, very good clay stats. Beat TFO last time they met. If you look at Nakashima, last 12 months on clay at main level, 50% win rate, service points won and return points won, total of 103. And he's held serve 91% of the time. So that suggests that he's the type of player that could well go on and win this tournament. TFO can't match those stats. Same win rate, but he's only got a service points won and return points won total of 100 and a service hold and break total of 100. So Nakashima's got better stats. If you must have a bet in this tournament, I would recommend you take a chance on Nakashima, but I don't think you're getting a great price. That's the problem. I don't think I can put it up because 7-1 for me is a little bit short, bearing in mind he does have those issues with the big points and the big moments. Nakashima, he's not someone that you would want to put a lot of money on at a short price because he may well let you down in the key moments. So yeah, a difficult draw. If you look at the seeds, I mean, Tommy Paul, is he up for this? Maybe not. Wasn't great at all in Miami, was he? Hasn't played well for a little while, actually, since the Australian Open. He's not been that great, Tommy Paul. TFO I just talked about. Tabilo hasn't played well for a long time. He's number 3. Michelsen, very limited experience on clay. Jordan Thompson, poor on clay. Certainly wouldn't be his surface. Etcheverry, we'll talk about him again in a minute, not playing well at all. Nishikori, you wouldn't have thought would have the stamina to win a clay court tournament in his sort of latter stages of his career. So that's all 8 seeds I've just kind of ruled out there. So the only one I haven't ruled out is Nakashima, but he's too short.
Yeah, by the process elimination, Brandon Nakashima is the bet, but 7-1 with Bet Rivers, they're taking no chances, and neither are we on the show. We're not going to have a bet on this one. We do, however, have some bets and leans on the matches, and the first match is Rinky at Hijikata up against Christopher Eubanks, -165 for Hijikata, +132 for Eubanks. Spread is 1.5. I'm astonished at the total games of 22.5. Is it that to me looks a rick? I was expecting to see number 24.5, number 25.5. I'm really surprised that Christopher Eubank matches are notoriously high in games, and the last time they met was here in 2024. Last year, 7-6, 7-6 to hit Rinky at Hijikata. 22.5
Yep.
cheap. The overs, isn't it?
The overs is the way I'm certainly going to play this.
Yeah.
I mean, the set 1 overs is the way I'm going to go because all these matches that I'm talking about or about to talk about in Houston, they certainly appeal in that regard. As you said, played here a year ago, 7-6, 7-6. Both held serve 92% of the time that day. I think this is basically being priced on a clay event, a general clay event, which it isn't really. So 92% holds of serve. First serve points won 79% Hijikata, 75% Eubanks. Return points won low. This is what I'm looking for. Lots of first serve points won, not many return points won. 31.6% return points Hijikata, 27.3 Eubanks. 2 break points in the entire match, which is what you would expect with those stats. If we just take the last 12 months on clay generally, not just this tournament at main level, both of them pretty awful records. Hijikata 17% win rate, and he's only won 30% of return points. Eubanks 0% win rate, and he's only won 30% of return points as well. So I was surprised that Bet Rivers came up with +310 about set 1 tiebreak here. I think that's generous. And if it's generous, you got to take it, haven't you?
Definitely. I just presumed that when I saw this graphic come up, I thought it'd be 24.5 the totals, and so every value in this match has to be surrounded around the total game. So player total games, the tie breaks, over 10.5, over 9.5, 22.5 total. So yeah, like the way of thinking. 2 times they met last year. 2 times they met before. Both wins for Hijikata. But the time they met at this tournament, 7-6, 7-6. You can get plus 330. Did you say 320?
Plus 310 for 310. Over 12.5 in set 1.
That's a big price. Plus 310 a tiebreak, set 1, Hijikata against Christopher Eubanks. Looking for some more value like that. In the next match, it's Aleksandar Kovacevic up against Tomas Martin Etcheverry. As Sean said there, Tomas Martin Etcheverry not in good form. He's only won 1 match in his last 5, and that was in the Challenger in Cap Cana. He got beaten in round 1 in Miami in a dreadful performance against Diallo. Got beat by Mensik. Obviously, he's doing really well in Indian Wells. And he's up against Aleksandar Kovacevic, which is a player that on any given day I think can really turn it on. But did well. He won the Challenger, didn't he? In Cap Canada, one that Etcheverry played in, and then he got beat by Kekmanovic in round 1 at Miami. But there is a huge difference in odds here, which is a bit. I don't think Tomas Martin Etcheverry should be minus 235. That is the price though, which means Kovacevic is plus 185. Spread is 2.5, and total is 22.5. I think the clay factor here edges it for Etcheverry. He's played some clay matches this year. This is the first clay match for Kovacevic. As we said on this show, though, this isn't a traditional clay court.
No, it's not. I mean, Kovacevic is more of a hard court guy. Very flashy style, likes to hit winners off both wings. Doesn't generally lend itself to slower courts, clay particularly. But, I mean, I couldn't back Etcheverry at minus 235 the way he's playing at the minute. I think the way to play this is similar to the first one. 2 players that hold serve a lot, and 1 player that's been in great form, which is Kovacevic, versus a favourite in Etcheverry who's struggling to perform, suggests that it will be closer. The match will be closer than those odds would have you believe. If you look at their Houston records, Kovacevic's only played 3 matches, so it's a small sample size. But even so, he's won 78% of his first serve points, 89% holds of serve, plays 0.5 tie breaks per set. So he plays a tie break every other set here. I know it's a small sample size, but they're the same numbers as he's produced on hard courts recently, which tells you a lot about Houston. Etcheverry also strong serve statistics at this tournament. He's strong statistics generally. I think we had him each way when he made the final here a couple of years ago. Lost to Tiafoe, which I think was 7-6, 7-6 in the final. So 6-2 win-loss here, Etcheverry. Service points won and return points won total is 102, and 86% holds of serve. So very strong serving at this tournament as well. Kovacevic coming here after winning 19 matches in 2025. So in the peak of confidence at the minute. As I said, he was unlucky against Kekmanovic in Miami. I think he won the service points won and return points won totals and ended up losing it in straight sets. I think he went 0 from 9 on break points. I think that was his problem, which again is another issue for Kovacevic. Return points won, breaking serve not that great at all, which then leads to overs because he holds a lot. Etcheverry only won 8 of 18 matches this season, was bageled by Gabriel Diallo last time out, which is you wouldn't expect Diallo to be bageling someone of Etcheverry's ability. So there's clearly not something that's not quite right there with him at the minute. Again, over 10.5 games in set 1 here. Plus 175 at Bet Rivers, just a tiny bit short for me. I think maybe in hindsight, I'll probably, when it comes around to hindsight, I'll perhaps be seen as being a bit greedy, but over 10.5 would be the way that I would go if I could get a slightly bigger price. But, a lot of people would probably not complain too much about plus 175.
Yeah. Plus 175, over 10.5. I quite like Kovacevic on the money line at plus 185. Tomas Martin Etcheverry is not playing well, and that performance last week in Miami was an alarm bell. I know it's going to clay, but I just do feel Kovacevic.
It's possible. I mean, what would worry me about Kovacevic is his kind of point construction over a long match. He isn't the most patient, but as you said, Etcheverry's form is really poor, so his confidence is obviously gone. So I wouldn't put anybody off taking Kovacevic, especially at a tournament where a lot of underdogs do win.
Our final match in Houston is the match between Yannick Hanfmann and Nicolas Moreno del Alboran. The American, Yannick Hanfmann is -$2. The Moreno de Alboran is +155. The spread is 2.5. Total here is 22.5. There's a form line for these two. They both met in Gstaad in 2024 on a clay court. Very different clay court, but Hanfmann won that. But it was a struggle, 7-6, 6-7, 6-4. And that was a European clay court, and those totals went very, very high. Are we looking for a similar kind of thing here? First set overs over on the games, similar kind of repeat of that first matchup?
Yes, I mean, that was played at altitude in Gstaad. I think there's about 700 odd meters of altitude there, possibly up to 1,000. I'm not sure. It's certainly got quite a bit of altitude to it, Gstaad, so tie breaks you would kind of expect there. And you would expect these two to play them. Two similar styles, like to serve big, try and dominate with the forehand. If we look at what Hanfmann's done here in Houston, again, it's kind of a small sample size, but he's only played 4 matches, but impressive statistics. Service points won and return points won a total of 110 in those 4 matches, winning 63% of his second serve points and beating Tommy Paul and Tomas to make the semi-finals here in 2023. Perhaps not a great surprise as far as Hanfmann's concerned, because he does love these quick clay events, generally at altitude in Kitzbühel and Gstaad, these sort of places, Santiago. But here as well, it's very quick, as we've said. Just breaking down that head-to-head meeting, I mean, it was as serve dominated as you could possibly get. Hanfmann 100% holds over 3 sets on clay, and 29% return points won. Moreno de Alboran 94% holds, and just 24% return points won. So it doesn't get any more serve dominated than that. So I was quite surprised that Bet Rivers were coming up with +195, 2.95 about set one over 10.5 games. Perhaps the reason for that is because Moreno de Alboran hasn't played singles yet this season. Struggled with a calf injury. He tore his calf muscle during pre-season training. So he hasn't played singles yet. Played doubles about a month ago. I'm assuming he's fit and ready for this. You wouldn't have thought he would play if he wasn't. We know Hanfmann loves the quick clay. As I've said, at altitude, he's made finals and gone deep in a lot of these tournaments. These are the conditions that he likes. 2 big servers, 2 poor returners in quick conditions on what's likely to be a hot day. It's over 10.5 for me again here.
Yeah, familiar trends, over 10.5. Hanfmann and Moreno del Alboran, another match that we like. The overs, head across to the Bet Rivers website. I think the overs are the way to go in this quick conditions on the clay court in Houston. Let's move on to our final tournament this week, and it's probably the one of the weakest tournaments of the lot. It's 250 over in Bucharest. This will be more traditional European clay, I'm guessing. Sean will give us the trends in a minute. The one thing I did notice when I was doing my sort of research on this match, the weather forecast in Bucharest looks absolutely awful. Another one where rain is affected almost every day. I'll be surprised they managed to get through this, but rain looks a problem, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it's changed, because I came up with the same conclusion that you did when I looked at this it was a couple of days ago. It said it was going to rain pretty much every day. It doesn't say that anymore. Mine now says it's not going to be warm by any means. My weather forecast now says it's going to be somewhere between sort of 15 and 18, some chance of rain. And then it gets really cold by the time of the title match. It's only going to be like 10 degrees or something by next Sunday. But yeah, when I first looked, it said rain every day. So maybe that is kind of somehow not the case now. But anyway, we haven't got that much to sort of go on here, because it's only been back on the tour for a year. This tournament, it was played a couple of weeks later last year as well, in mid-April. Now it's the start of April. The weather doesn't look great, as you said. So we've only got the 2024 edition to look at. 72.3% holds, 65.9% first serve points won. So that puts it slower than Marrakesh. It's the slowest of all 3 tournaments this week. 37% of the matches featured a tie break, which is the same as Houston, but there's only 1 edition been played. So, take these stats potentially with a bit of a pinch of salt. Underdog winners last year, 33%. 2 big priced finalists. Martin Fucsovic won it 20-1 last year, beating 33-1 shot Navone in the final. He won't get 33-1 about Navone this year. Already talked about the weather, so yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and if you look at the players who got through last year, who went deep in the tournament, they were real traditional clay quarters. And if you look at the draw, it's dominated by your real clay courses. Sebastian Baez is the favourite. He's 5-1. Laszlo Djere is 550. Navone, not 33-1, but 8-1 this time round. Fuchsovic is the defending champion, 10. Pedro Martinez, he's the number 2 seed, he's 10. Nicolas Jarry at 12, preferred him at more altitude. Ugo Carabelli, just come from Miami, where he got beat by Novak Djokovic, 14. Kaboli, 14. Marajan, 16. Comensana, 18. Bashavredi, 18. Botic van der Sandschip, 20. Zuzan Lajovic, 20, and 22-1 bar, including 40-year-old Stanislav Wawrinka at 22-1. And Roberto Bautista also at that price. If we look at the draw, Sebastian Baez gets a bye to round 2 alongside Nicolas Jarry in the top half of the draw. And in the bottom half of the draw, it's Kaboli and Martinez with them buys. If it went to the seedings, Baez will play Bautista Agut. Jarry would play Navoni. Ugo Carabelli will play Kaboli. And Marajan will play Martinez. You said about Navoni not being 40-1. He was the plug I liked here. He's 8-1. Put me off that, or are you agreeing?
I think the bottom half is much more wide open. I think that top half, yeah, I don't disagree. I think the top half is really competitive, though. He's got Laszlo Djere in the first round. That could be a final.
Yeah.
Of any.
Well, they're second and third favourites. Whoever wins it will be clear tournament favourite.
Yeah, I mean, the winner of that, I think, would play probably the defending champion Fuchsovic in the next round. And then after that, the winner would probably have to play Nicolas Jarry, assuming he's fit. If they get through all that lot, then they'd probably have to play Baez, maybe. So I don't think there's any real value in the top half in those guys, to be honest, just because it is so stacked. I think the bottom half is where the value certainly is. And, I've talked a few times on the show about us having withdrawals, mid-tournament withdrawals, retirements, illnesses. I actually put Marajan down, first of all, for this. And then he withdrew about 2 hours later. So at least he withdrew before the tournament this time, which is something. But, yeah, wide open for me. I mean, Martinez and Kaboli are both in terrible form. Ugo Carabelli is perhaps the obvious choice on form, but he's played an awful lot of tennis. So much tennis he's played recently. And he'll also find the conditions extremely different to what he's perhaps used to in South America. Shevchenko's in terrible form. Zuma has played an awful lot of tennis as well, retired due to fatigue in Zadar about a week or so ago. And then he withdrew from Naples. He's played an absolute ton of tennis. Now, the player that I've plumped for here is it scares me already that I'm doing this. But fortunately, I'm not there to watch it. I'm in Marrakesh. And I'm going for Botic van der Zandschulp here at 20-1. And there's a few reasons for this. The first thing that I'm interested in is the fact that he's twice made the final in Munich at a very similar time of year, and usually in these kind of damp, cold conditions. I mean, it's perhaps not going to be as damp as I thought it was, but it's still not going to be great. These are the conditions that van der Zandschulp has played his best at. He's got a good head-to-head against his opening two opponents, 2-0 against Gasquet, beating Kaboli in their only meeting. That would put him through, a repeat of that would put him through to the quarterfinals against a potentially very, very tired Ugo Carabelli. We know van der Zandschulp is capable of top-class tennis. He's beaten Novak Djokovic, beaten Carlos Alcaraz, beaten Rafael Nadal in his last ever match, all of those on big occasions. He just doesn't seem to be able to string it all together. But at the very least, his coaching team should be saying, look, you've just beaten three of the best players in the world. It's two of the best players ever to have played the game. You've got to draw some confidence from that. So he's got a great opportunity here. I think 20-1, I think, is a pretty good price. I wouldn't back him at shorter price because he is so moody, but I think he's the way to go here. I think this bottom half is really, really open. Wawrinka, as you said, 40 years of age, just played a challenger. Zuma's exhausted. Basavareddy's hardly played on clay. Carabelli exhausted. Shevchenko in terrible form. So 20-1, I think, yeah, I'm happy with that.
The only worry is that he seems to just raise his game against those big guys, and then he gets a sort of a guy ranked 120 in the world, and he's not interested in. He's not going to run into some of these big guys in this tournament, is he? But he does start off against Richard Gasquet, which is a big match. Yeah,
I mean, he's more than capable of winning this tournament. As I said, he's played his best stuff at main level and at challenges as well, incidentally, in these kind of slowish, damp, cold, sort of spring-like, semi-chilly conditions. which is what we're going to get in Bucharest, I think, unless the weather forecast changes again, which it may do. That's the thing that interests me the most, that he's capable of winning in these sort of conditions.
Yeah, he is a man more than capable, as he's seen those big results. And 20-1 in a very, very wide open. But I was unaware that Marrakesh retired, pulled out before you told me that. So
he only did it about an hour or so ago. Yeah. I'd already written half of it up, and I thought, hang on a minute, I better just check. And then I get little bleeps through on when people withdraw, and he withdrew. So I only wrote a little bit of it, and then just crossed it all out. So there you go.
What was a wide open draw has become even wider, and now man to bolt through that wide open draw is Botic van der Shamtrip at 20-1. There is no matches that we are interested in this match. We've looked at the matches and we can't really find any angles in it, but you can make your own mind up if you head across to the Bet Rivers website and have a look at these matches. I think the matches here in Bucharest will start, let me just get the time, they'll start about 5:30 a.m. tomorrow morning. So if you do anything you like on the outright market, you've got to do it today on Sunday evening because it's a nice early start tomorrow. In Houston, normal traditional times, 12 p.m. Eastern time, and in Marrakesh, it's 10:10 in the morning. So quite nice, but Bucharest is an early start. So if you do want to get involved in Botic van der Shamtrip or you want to have a bet on the matches, you need to do that pretty much tonight when this podcast drops. Before we go, make sure you hit that subscribe button. As I said earlier, please hit the subscribe, hit the like, give us a comment on the shows we're doing here. Lots and lots of subscribers coming in. Betting Weekly live every day at 4 p.m. now in the UK. The clocks have gone forward. 11 a.m. Eastern time. The boys will be looking at all the best bets for that particular day. We've got some big tennis coming up, and we also have the return of the Premier League tomorrow with Betting Weekly Premier League with myself, Jack, and Dan, and also we'll be covering the Premier League on Tuesday and Wednesday on Betting Weekly Live with all the big bets and the big wagers from the Bet Rivers headquarters, including March Madness, which is coming to the conclusion of that as well. Also, we've got the Champions League coming up, loads of tennis, the clay court season, the countdown to the French Open tennis is started, and we will have you covered here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. Okay, that's been it for the preview of these three tournaments. Before we go, Sean, give us a quick run through of your official plays. Your official plays, please.
Yeah, so starting in Bucharest, just the outright there, Botic van der Shamtrip each way at 20-1. Let me just open this. I've got all on different bits of software here. As far as Houston is concerned, the official plays over 10.5 games in set one at plus 195 in the match between Hanfmann and Moreno de Alboran. Also set one over 12.5 games in this one, plus 310 with Bet Rivers in the match between Hijikata and Eubanks. There's no outright there in Houston. Moving on to Marrakesh, the match bet there was Pavel Kotov minus 115 with Bet Rivers to beat Bellucci, and a couple of outrights there. Jean Mounard each way 10-1. Hugo Gaston, big price each way at 40-1. Those are the official plays for this week.
They had official plays. Good luck with your bets. We'll be back again on Tuesday. Sean will be jetting off to Marrakesh on Tuesday evening. You can follow him at Because We Win on our Instagram account. Make sure you please follow that as well. Good content coming your way. And we'll speak to you again on Tuesday, Sean. Take care. Have a good rest of your weekend.